Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Nelson, here on this amazing Friday afternoon. I'm a little bit tired because I had to submit like 2 different projects yesterday and, actually going into today, and I had to stay up all night, which is, was not fun. But at the very least, I did watch the football game that went down last night. So that's obviously going to be the first segment. It was such a great game. I'm going to talk about that. Excuse me. That was weird. And then in the second segment, I'm going to talk about what the NBA season has proven so far, but a couple of different things. So it's like, I'm not going to bring up the same topics of what I talked about last time I did this segment. It's going to be a couple of different things. Then in the third segment, I'm going to talk about Bill Belichick and getting interviewed by North Carolina. And it's a very odd thing because, again, retiring from the NFL and moving over to college, I don't think many coaches do that, at least at his age. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. And then in the fourth segment, we're going to recap the NBA games that happened yesterday, as well as give my predictions for the results of some of these other games that are going down later today and over the weekend. And then we have a very special fifth segment that I really hope you guys stay tuned for at the end. Before I begin, I would like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether it be a hot take, whether it be a burning question, something that you've been dying to share. We're all ears. And if you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. If Super Chat's not really your thing, then you can always just use the link display below the ticker, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Again, they all really help the show. They make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. Once again, the link is gsmcspodcast.net if you guys are interested. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this first segment, which is going to be talking about that Lions game against the Packers. Now, this game was great. I mean, I thought this was going to be the best game of the week, and I mean, it's obviously, the first game of the week, but it's a really good sign that this is going to be the best game of the week. The final score was 34-31 in favor of the favor of the Lions. I wanted the Packers to win, but the Lions, they're just a fantastic team. They've won 11 straight games, and they now hold a 12-1 record, and most likely are going to secure their first-round bye, as well as the number 1 seed in all of the NFC. It is, again, this game was a great game. Jared Goff played great. Jordan Love, he played solid as well. He didn't throw the ball nearly as much as Goff did in this game, but when he did need to throw the ball, he made them count. Jordan Love, he completed 12 of his 20 passes, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Josh Jacobs was on a roll in in this game, scoring 3 touchdowns, only 66 yards, but regardless, 3 touchdowns is 3 touchdowns, and you can't really argue with that. And on the Lions side, I mean, Jared Goff, 32 for 41 completion rate, 283 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. So, and everyone else was fantastic as well. I mean, David Montgomery had 1 touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, he had 43 yards. And, the offense was a little bit spread between each other. Nobody really had a monster performance, right? It was more of like a valiant team effort going throughout. There were some forced fumbles, there was some defense being played, and on the Lions side, Tim Patrick ended up scoring 2 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Jahmyr Gibbs ended up scoring a receiving touchdown. So while Jahmyr Gibbs did not score a touchdown on the ground, he did score a touchdown in the air. And I mean, just a fantastic game. I thought that this was going to be the game that the Packers ended up winning, but I mainly chose that team because my friend is a Packers fan. It really could have gone either way with the way that this game went. And it came all the way down to the wire. So the score was tied going into the final minutes of the game. So the Lions, they decided to go on a very long drive down the field to end the game, right? Now, with the score being tied, all they would need is a field goal to win. So they were already in field goal range, right? But if they would have kicked the field goal, then at that moment, being in field goal range, then it would have given the Packers time to actually do something. So Dan Campbell, one of the craziest coaches, makes one of the craziest coaching decisions and decides to go for it on 4th and 1, so that way they can maintain possession of the ball, because the Packers didn't have any more timeouts, and when they maintained possession of the ball, they'd be able to ensure that the Packers wouldn't be able to win the game off of a touchdown or even tie the game off of a field goal. It was an incredibly risky move, but it paid off in the end. And it's like, this is sort of why you ride or die with this kind of coach, because, and so far, any of the times that he's gambled, it seems to have worked. So I really like this coach. I really like how he likes to gamble and he believes in his offense, and in turn the offense actually performs. It's a very rare sight that we see, especially now. It's a very rare sight that we see a coach that's willing to take these kinds of risks, and we rarely see anybody take these kinds of risks, especially like late in games. I see quarterbacks, whenever, instead of like just taking a shot down the field with the game on the line, they just check the ball down. And I'm just like, why would you do that? Why on earth would you do that? And similar with some of these coaches, it's like, instead of going for it when they're inside the opponent's territory, maybe at the 1 yard line, they decide to just take the field goal. And that really confuses me. I remember, speaking of the Packers, I remember when the Packers did this against the Seahawks in that infamous playoff game. I forgot exactly which year it was, but I was rather young, so again, I don't really remember exactly what year that was. But I do know that the Packers, they played against the Seahawks, and the Seahawks played basically about as bad as you could possibly imagine. Like, they were awful for the first 3 quarters and going into the 4th quarter. But the game was still rather close. Ultimately, the Seahawks ended up winning in the end because the Packers choked. Their defense let up several scores. The special teams let up an onside kick recovery. And in overtime, the defense immediately gave the Seahawks a touchdown off of a long pass. I'm sure all of you guys, especially Packers fans, remember that game. But in that game, Mike McCarthy was their coach, by the way. Go figure, Cowboys coach now. But in that game, the Packers, they would have the ball at around like the 1 yard line in opponent's territory, just 1 yard away from the end zone. And instead of trying to go for it on 4th down, like 4th and 1 or 4th and goal, they decided to just kick field goals, and they did it twice. They did it 2 times, and in my head, especially like now when I rewatch this game, I'm thinking, why on earth didn't Mike McCarthy just go for it? You have the number 1 offense led by the NFL MVP Aaron Rodgers. Stop coaching scared and just go for it. And even if he did not convert, and even if the Packers do not convert on the 4th and goal at the 1 yard line, you're still giving the Seahawks at the very most, or even at the very least, 99 yards to drive down the field and try to score a touchdown in a game where they were playing like the worst team that has ever set foot on an NFL field. They were playing unbelievably awful in that game. But Dan Campbell, he's like, no, we are going to take risks. I like this team, and I have faith in this team, and I really do admire a coach that loves to take those kinds of risks. Now, overall, the game didn't really start out nearly as competitive as the way it ended. So I mean, the score going into the half, right, after the first half, was 7-17, and in favor of the Lions. So it seemed like the Lions were going to run away with this easily until the Packers opened up this game with a touchdown, and then Jared Goff turned into Jared Goof after that possession, and then Jordan Love responded with another touchdown. Jordan Love and the Packers responded with another touchdown after that interception. But then the Lions, they quickly answered right back with a touchdown of their own. Then in the fourth quarter, the Packers, they opened up with a touchdown. Then the Lions, they opened up with a touchdown. Then the Packers took a field goal to ensure that they tied the game. And then that's when the Lions, they did their thing. It was a very great game. And it was like, again, no one really had any crazy performances going into this game and playing in this game. But it was just an overall team game. It was an overall team win, and I really liked this game. I don't expect any other team to really, at least in this week, to have as good of a game or be as good of a game to watch as this team. But again, we have no idea. Maybe the Browns going up against the Steelers, maybe that's going to be a good game. I remember that was a pretty great game the last time they matched up. Maybe the Bengals going up against the Cowboys is going to be a good one. Maybe the Chargers going up against the Chiefs is going to be a good one. But for the most part, I think this was going to be, and is, well, as of right now, it is the best game of the week. But I think it's going to keep that title. But with that out of the way, I'm going to go into a short break. And then after that break, we're going to talk about some more things that this NBA season has proven so far. So I'll be right back after the short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown. Get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back with the second segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this second segment, I am going to be continuing from the second segment that I did yesterday and talking about some things that so far this NBA season has proven to us. And before I begin, I would like to remind everybody that we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show. Whether it's a hot take, whether it is a burning question, or something that you're just dying to share, we are all ears. And if you really want your comment and or question to get noticed, then I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. And if Super Chat's not really your thing, then you can always go ahead and use the link displayed below the ticker on every single show segment to send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show, makes it much more interactive between myself and you guys. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this second segment, which is going to be talking about what this NBA season has proven so far. Again, this is inspired by Swish Out, who made a video on this, and I'm just going to give my thoughts on the things that he said. I'm obviously not going to say what he said, but if we agree on it, then I just wanted to let you guys know that these are still my opinions on this and just how I feel about it. And also giving credit to Swish Out, because I wouldn't want to steal anyone's work, because that's just not cool. But in the last segment, we talked about Klay Thompson and like his sort of decline from being a all-star on Golden State to now being a current role player, and just how I was wrong, and I thought he was actually going to be a pretty solid player on the Mavs, but it doesn't really seem like that's going to be the case based off of how he's playing. And then we also talked about the Timberwolves and their lack of success happening right now, going into as of right now in the season, since they traded Karl Anthony Towns, because they were one series away from making it to the finals. Then they trade Karl Anthony Towns, and now they're 11-10 and sitting at a very near 500 record. And Anthony Edwards could walk. He could end up walking if he really, really wants to towards the once his season is concluded, like once his contract is concluded, excuse me. And let's see. With the Knicks right now, they're 14-8, and Karl Anthony Towns is on a winning team. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards is on the short end of the stick. But that's besides the point. I talked about that in the last in yesterday's segment. So if you guys are interested to learn to have or figure out what I said, then I recommend tuning into that YouTube video. I uploaded it last night. But let's get into what I want to talk about today, which is the San Antonio Spurs and Chris Paul. So the Chris Paul effect is 100% real. Now, for those of you guys who don't know the Chris Paul effect, essentially every single time Chris Paul joins a new team, because he's played for a lot of teams. He's played for the Pelicans when they were named the Hornets, New Orleans Hornets. It was a very long time ago when they did that name change. The Clippers, probably his most famous tenure. Houston, another famous tenure. Oklahoma City, he's played for them. He also played for Phoenix, where he actually made the finals but did not win it, unfortunately. And Golden State, and now San Antonio. So, say what you want about Chris Paul. Say what you want about him being a playoff choker, how he does not have enough rings, how he does not have any rings. He is, in my opinion, a playoff choker, but I cannot deny the amount of impact that this man brings to a regular season and to a team overall. I cannot deny that impact whatsoever. Every single time Chris Paul has joined a team, the team has played significantly better than before he was on the team. For the New Orleans Hornets, they changed their name to the Pelicans. So New Orleans, just keep that in mind. They were 18-64 without Chris Paul. Then once they drafted him, they went 38-44 in that season. Not a very impressive record, but still improvement was there. And the team ultimately ended up getting better and better as years went on. Unfortunately, they could not build a title contending team around him. Then he joins the Clippers. They were 32-50 before he joined. And then once he joined, they went 40-26. Again, Chris Paul effect. And he also had some help along with that as well, with Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Lob City. But still, most of it is Chris Paul. Then on Houston, an already good team, 55-27. So that is a great team led by James Harden. How much better can it get? Well, with Chris Paul, they went 65-17, and they look like they would be the team that would be able to beat the Golden State Warriors in 2018. And that effect that Chris Paul has on the team, it is real. Then on OKC, OKC was 49-33 in the previous year. Now, this one needs a little bit of an asterisk, all right? Because they were 49-33 that the year before Chris Paul, but you have to understand that the how do I say this? So the players on the Thunder were Paul George and Russell Westbrook, and that was their team record when the two All-Stars were on the team, right? And then that offseason, they ended up leaving. Chris Paul ended up getting traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder for Russell Westbrook, and Paul George ended up getting traded over to the Clippers in exchange for so many draft picks. So because the Thunder ended up losing the two stars, the two players that primarily made the offense, nobody expected the Thunder to be a good team. But they went 44-28, which is fantastic. Like, that is great. I mean, that is no one again, this was a team, I believe they had like a 0.06% of making it into the postseason or something like that. I know it was a very low number. They had like maybe it was a 6% chance, a 6% chance of making it into the postseason, and they made the postseason with Chris Paul. It was it was completely unexpected, and that was when the Chris Paul effect sort of became less of a joke and more of a reality. And then on Phoenix, they were 34-39 before Chris Paul. And now when they got Chris Paul, they went 51-22. And it also should be noted that on that asterisk year, they did have to suspend the season a little bit. And I mean, because, in 2020 it was COVID, and they could not really have teams and players playing when there was a whole pandemic going around. So that year with the Thunder, it's a little bit of an asterisk, but still, at that rate, it seemed like he was going to have a much better record than the Thunder in the previous year. But the Suns, now this is, the first real season in a while, the minute they got Chris Paul, they went 51-22, and they made the NBA Finals. They did not win it in the Finals because Chris Paul is a choker, but they made it to the NBA Finals. And then recently for Golden State, they went 44-38 without him, and then with him went 46-36. So improvement, fantastic improvement from across the board. And now with the Spurs were 22-60, and right now they're sitting at, I believe they're sitting at 11-11 as their team record. But still, this is a very good start, and this is a much better start than what the Spurs had in previous years. So the last 2 years, excuse me. So I'm going to, I spent a lot of time talking about Chris Paul. But again, that effect is 100% real. So I'm going to try and speed through this next team that I wanted to talk about, and that was the Miami Heat. So I don't know what the Miami Heat are trying to prove here. I genuinely do not know. But for the last 5 years ago, the best players on the Miami Heat were Jimmy Butler, Bam, and Tyler Hero. Going 5 years later, their best players were Jimmy Butler, Bam, and Tyler Hero. And what do they have to show for it? A couple of finals appearances, and that's it. I don't know why Miami is not trying to change the roster and completely just revamp the entirety of the roster like several other teams did. I mean, the Celtics, they were a fantastic team. They were making the finals, and they were making it to the Eastern Conference Finals almost every single year. What do? They end up getting better and getting Kristaps on the team. The Knicks, so recently they've been a great playoff team, and they've been at the very most a second round team. What did they do? They went and got better, and they got Karl Anthony Towns as well as Mikal Bridges, and they got rid of DiVincenzo. The Bucks, they were on the cusp of being a competent team with Giannis Antetokounmpo, but they couldn't really get over that hump. They did a little bit too much, in my opinion, but what do? They went and they got Drew Holiday, which ultimately resulted in a championship later on, and then they went and got Damian Lillard, which isn't really looking like it's going too hot right now, but still, they're trying to improve their roster actively, and they're doing so in the span of a couple of years. The Miami Heat, they haven't really made a drastic change in their lineup at all. It's it's like they're just stuck on these 3 players. And I'm like, what are you guys trying? What are the Heat trying to prove? It hasn't given you an NBA championship, and it's not like you're really trying to improve the roster around them either. It's why are you guys trying to do this? And it's not like Jimmy Butler is getting any younger. And I genuinely do not understand why they continue to deal with these players on the roster as opposed to trying to get a better roster. Not saying that these players are like, intolerable or things like that, but they haven't really been able to be consistent. They go on some, miracle runs in the postseason, but I don't really see them, no one sees them, in fact, making it all the way to the NBA Finals most of the time. It's like, when are you going to stop with this Heat culture and just try and bring actual talent or more talent to the team? Because it's making it sound like that these guys aren't talented, because they definitely are talented, but clearly for the last 5 years this team has not done what is expected of them to do, and that is win championships. This team has not done that. So why aren't they making any drastic changes? I don't know, but that's really all that I have in this second segment. Again, I did not really expect to go way over the time, but it's like, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you guys think that that this season has proven a similar thing, or do you guys think differently? So we're going to go into a break, and then afterwards we're going to talk about Bill Belichick on potentially being the new head coach for North Carolina. So we're going to talk about that right after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to talk about Bill Belichick and the possibility of him coaching a college team, because recently there have, and we're going straight into the segment, by the way, recently there have been reports and multiple reports at that Bill Belichick has at the very least spoken with North Carolina representatives about the school's open head coaching job. And this is coming as a little bit of a shocker, because, like, at least for me, I thought that when Bill Belichick, I like to call him the Emperor, because, like, for the longest time he just completely dominated the AFC, and with Tom Brady, like, those guys are like the Emperor and Darth Vader from Star Wars. It was like, oh, these guys, they just won't go away. They are evil. Get away from me. And finally they both go away, and they're not in the NFL anymore. But obviously, Bill Belichick, one of the best coaches in NFL history. I mean, he started out with the New York Giants as a defensive coordinator. Fantastic. Developed Lawrence Taylor. Love him for that. And then he went and became evil and became the head coach for the Patriots and won 6 Super Bowls for the Patriots, as you guys well already know, because we cannot stop talking about Tom Brady and his championship rings for whatever reason. But aside from me not liking Tom Brady, this is a surprising move coming in from Bill Belichick. I mean, he has never coached in college before, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a college coaching background, right? So again, he's the former coach for the New England Patriots, and he's been coaching. He's been out of coaching during the 2024 season since parting ways with the Patriots at the end of 2023, primarily because it doesn't really seem like the Pats are a good enough team when they're led by Belichick. I mean, it's starting to. The narrative between, like, whether Tom was a system quarterback and whether or not Bill Belichick needed Tom definitely got enforced after the last few seasons when Bill Belichick coached the Patriots without having Tom Brady on it. He was able to make the playoffs regardless, but still, he got absolutely whooped by the Bills. They got whooped so bad that the Bills ended up breaking records, scoring a touchdown on every single drive that they had in that game. They did not like being the red carpet that the Pats would walk on every single year for 20 plus years when Tom Brady was the quarterback. They did not like that time at all. But regardless, after parting ways, it seems like after parting ways with the Pats, it seems like you just take retirement, especially with the girlfriend that he has now, very young, and I think you just take your time and spend time with her, or you just do something else with your life. But no, he wants to coach. He wants to coach North Carolina. Now, North Carolina, they fired their head coach, Mac Brown, at the end of the season, and Brown is not the coach for the Tar Heels. He's not going to coach the Tar Heels bowl game. And Brown was in his second stint with the school. And, after 2 years getting fired, that is incredible. That is crazy, in my opinion. But Bill Belichick, he's 72. He's approximately 8 months younger than Brown, and he has never coached college football before. Though his dad, Steve Belichick, he was a longtime college coach. In fact, one of the more famous college coaches, because he spent 30 years, actually well over 30 years, coaching the Navy. And back in the day, Navy football and Army football, they were like Navy and Army, like they had football teams, and it was a vibe, I guess you could say. That's like really the only thing that's like really the best way to describe it. Like that was it was a great thing that they added that to the Navy and Army programs, because the way that some people see it, like, you can implement a lot of military strategies, and you can implement military tactics into the game of football. I took a history of football class, and that's exactly what we learned, and that's exactly what the teacher talked about. It was like, some of the people, they ended up using and taking like Napoleon's speeches, and as well as Napoleon's strategies of in the art of war, and implemented that into football. It's a long story, and I can't really do it justice in just one segment, but it's like the Army and Navy footballs, they were legit. And so Bill's father was a legitimate coach, which explains Bill Belichick's coaching background and his ability to coach at such a high level in the NFL. But regardless, Belichick's son, Steve, is in his first season as a defensive coordinator at Washington as well. So the team is it's got a very talented coaching tree, like the family, I should say. So being the defensive coordinator at Washington. And Bill is also very good friends with former Alabama head coach Nick Saban. Nick Saban, excuse me. And if there was anything that Belichick needed to know about the current state of college football, is we're betting that Saban would not be shy sharing that information. The Patriots, they won 6 Super Bowls, obviously, during his time and his tenure. The team's last title came at the end of the 2018 season when and New England missed the playoffs in each of Belichick's final 2 seasons. So it's like not a very good stint. Definitely not a very good stint. But he was interviewed by North Carolina, and according to some reports, he blew them away in the interview. And it seems like, the interest for Bill Belichick to be the head coach of North Carolina, it's very real. But really, I think the big concern is, at least for me, his age. And I don't really know how long is he's going to continue to be able to be a head coach. Being 72, it's not that old, but again, it's pretty old. And he is 8 months younger than the previous coach. But another thing that is going to bug me is the fact that he has never coached a college team before. Granted, JJ Redick has never coached an NBA team before, and here he is being able, the Lakers are in a much better spot than what they were in last year, in my opinion. I mean, they're 12-10 right now, so not really the best spot, definitely not the best spot, but still, they do have, I feel like their offense has gotten much better under JJ Redick as opposed to what it's gone with, what it was with Darvin Ham. But the big problem with the Lakers, in my opinion, is their defense, or lack thereof. And also some of the role players who don't really seem to be nearly as consistent as we expect them to be, but that's besides the point. I mean, Belichick being the head coach for the Tar Heels, going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting what he brings to the table, as well as how long he is going to be the head coach for the for college games. And really, I actually do have a question for you guys. Do you guys think that Bill Belichick can actually make this team a competent team in the future, going into the future of college football? Because the college football landscape is changing with multiple teams, with conference realignments and things like that. Do you think that the Tar Heels, they could be a legitimate team in the college football scene, and would they be able to make bowl games? Would they be able to make the college football playoffs if they had Bill Belichick as their coach? I'm curious what you guys think about that in the comments section down below. I wouldn't put it past him. Again, this is a coach that has, throughout his entire career of coaching in the NFL, he has done more or less, he has done nothing but win. I mean, he's won as a defensive coordinator with the Giants, as I mentioned before, and we all know what he did with the Pats. Now, again, you can make the argument that it was more or less Tom Brady. Like, that argument is definitely strengthened after the last few seasons he was on New England. But at the same time, I don't even think any coach with that roster would have been able to do what Belichick did, both with Tom Brady and without Tom Brady. But again, we never really know. Because again, Tom Brady, once he left the Patriots, he ended up winning a Super Bowl. But that roster was way better than what most people want you to believe. And I could go on and on about how lucky Tom Brady has been throughout his entire career. But aside from that, and I could also go on and on about how fantastic Bill Belichick's defenses were in most of those years where he ended up winning. But aside from that, that's really all that I have in this third segment. Again, let me know in the comments if you guys think Bill Belichick should take this job, if you guys think he should just, retire, if you guys, stay retired, if you guys think that maybe somebody else would be a better fit for the head coaching position since he has no experience as a college coach. Let me know what you guys think. But we're going to go into the fourth segment, which is going to be a recap of all of the games that went down yesterday in the NBA. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we're back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to be doing a nice little recap of all the NBA games that took place yesterday. And we are going to get into some predictions that I have over these weekend games. So far, I have never, ever been able to get a day where I actually predict these games perfectly. And today is no different. I really thought today would be the day where I got it, but I messed up. I did not. So let's start from the top. The Mavericks, this game I did not mess up, though. The Mavericks, they ended up winning 137-101 against the Wizards. Now, it should be noted that the Wizards, they did not win a single game in the month of November. And it doesn't seem like they're going to win a game in the month of December either. They are on an 18-game losing streak, I believe, and it's a very good chance that this team might end up breaking the Pistons record last season with the most consecutive losses in a franchise in NBA history. I would not be surprised if this team does this, because I thought this team was the worst team in the NBA last season, and last season a lot of people thought the Pistons were the worst team. So now the fact that the Pistons are doing much better now than what they were compared to what Washington's doing, this is a terrible look for Washington. Like, they just cannot win games. Luka Doncic, he ended with a 21-point triple-double with 10 rebounds and 10 assists. Kyrie ended with 25 points. Klay Thompson, only 11 points. Again, I said before, he is streaky. He's not as reliable as what he was before. And he went 4 for 9 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. Again, for a role player, that's really good. And that's what Klay Thompson is right now. It's as sad as it is to say, that's what he is. And on Washington's side, Jordan Poole was terrible, 11 points in this game, and was 4 for 14 from the field. I mean, I know I'm not the only one who thought that Jordan Poole was going to average 30 points per game now that he has all that money on the team, and now that he has the spotlight, and no one is really going to be on that team is really good enough to be able to say, give me the ball, Jordan Poole, like how the Golden State Warriors were. And, I mean, I don't know why he hasn't averaged 30 points per game. I don't know why he's playing this bad, but it's really not that good. He is just a shot chucker, and I could go on and on about what I think about Jordan Poole. It's not very... I do not really like his tactics or how he plays the game and how he approaches the game, but that's just me. And the team is really suffering mainly because of his shot selection, like his poor shot selection. And really the only good player on the Wizards last night was Marvin Bagley III. And even then, only 16 points. That's not enough to beat the Dallas Mavericks and their offense. Now, the Knicks... they ended up playing the Hornets, and they ended up blowing them out 125-101. That's another game that I ended up getting right. And fun fact, one of my friends was actually at the game, almost sitting courtside. He got some really good seats, and you could actually see him you could barely see him on Bleacher Report and Overtime's post after Karl Anthony Towns ended up dunking the ball. Like, again, it's very difficult to see him, but I was able to see him. And Mikal Bridges in this game, 19 points and 7 assists. OG Anunoby, 25 points on 40 minutes, just fantastic. And Karl Anthony Towns, 27 and 16. Josh Hart, 18 and 10. Jalen Brunson with 24 points. The starting lineup for the Knicks played phenomenally. There was no LaMelo Ball for the Hornets in this game, but there was Brandon Miller, who ended the game with 26 points. But the rest of the team, they just could not keep up with the Knicks in this game. And they shot 38% from 3 compared to the Knicks shooting 54% from 3 and 53% from the field. Again, when a team is shooting that good from 3, it is very, very difficult to beat them. And especially when it's the Knicks playing at home. I mean, I always have this this thought process that it's like the Knicks, they're always going to have one of the most difficult times playing in the Garden, because everybody who is anybody in the NBA wants to perform in the Garden, and chances are you are going to get the best games, the best away games from NBA legends in the Garden. I mean, Michael Jordan, he was a beast in the Garden. There's legends that literally people talk about his performance in Madison Square Garden like it's legend. Kobe, he dropped like 62 points on the Knicks at one point. I remember James Harden, he was ridiculous in Madison Square Garden as well. Reggie Miller, I don't even have to talk about Reggie Miller. The Knicks fans already know about what Reggie Miller did to them in the Garden. And, I mean, it's just the mecca of basketball. Several teams and several players want to play well in there. And now, moving on to Golden State, matching up against Houston. I thought Houston was going to be able to win this game, but apparently the Warriors, they're on a 15-game winning streak against the Houston Rockets. The last time Houston ended up beating Golden State was in 2018, I believe. 2018, 2019. Around that time. They can't win. They cannot beat them. They genuinely cannot beat them. The last time that they did that was when Russell Westbrook was on Houston, And that was a very, very long time ago. I don't know what it is. It's just a bugaboo, but it seems like the Golden State Warriors, they own the Houston Rockets. And they also own them in the playoffs, by the way. Jonathan Kuminga, he ended the game with 33 points. There was no Steph Curry in this game. So this was the perfect time for them to actually beat the Golden State Warriors, and they could not get it done. Andrew Wiggins, 23 points. But meanwhile, on Houston's side, nobody really played that well in this game. Everyone just played bad. I mean, Sengun had 16 points on 15 shots. Dylan Brooks had 15 on 13 shots. Jalen Green had 14 on 16 shots. Everyone just shot inconsistent on Houston, and they were terrible. They shot 28% from 3 compared to the Warriors shooting 32% from 3. Not even 28%, 26%, excuse me. Like, just a bad game from Houston, and a game I thought they were going to be able to win, especially with Steph Curry being out in this game. I don't know. I don't know why they were unable to do that. The Cavs, they ended up beating the Denver Nuggets, and this game, it really showed me that the Denver Nuggets, without Nikola Jokic in the lineup, they are absolutely awful. Jokic ended the game with 27 points, 20 rebounds, and 11 assists, but the rest of the team was more or less non-existent. Michael Porter played pretty well with 24 points. Jamal Murray, 19 points, but again, it wasn't enough to stop the Cleveland Cavaliers, who had 4 players in this game end with 20 points or more. Donovan ended with 28, Garland ended with 24, Evan Mobley ended with 20, and Karis LeVert, coming off the bench, ended with 21. They just completely destroyed the Denver Nuggets, winning 126 to 114. They shot 45% from 3. Meanwhile, the Nuggets shot 25% from 3. Again, those shooting splits are not ideal if you have intentions on winning big games. Just terrible shooting splits. But I expected the Cavs to beat them. The Thunder, they ended up beating the Raptors. Again, another game that I expected to go the Thunder's way. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 30 points, because of course he did. Jalen Williams had 20 points. There's still no Chet Holmgren, but that's still no problem, apparently, for the Thunder, as they're the number 1 team in the Western Conference. So, and then on the Raptors side, Scotty Barnes had 12 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 assists. And RJ Barrett had 17 points and 11 rebounds. Still, 129 to 92 wasn't enough to go up against the Thunder and their high-powered offense. Next, the Grizzlies, they matched up against the Kings. Pretty sure I picked the Grizzlies to win in this one, and they ended up winning. They won 115 to 110. The Kings, they have been looking less than mediocre so far with this team. 26 points came in from DeRozan, 17 points and 13 rebounds came in from Sabonis. De'Aaron Fox had 18 points. And Keegan Murray had 11 points along with 11 rebounds. I don't know what the issue is, but I mean, De'Aaron Fox, he shot awful from the field, 0 for 7 from 3, 8 for 23 from the field for only 18 points, and was really the big reason why they ended up losing, aside from Kevin Huerter, who ended the game 30 for 10 from the field and 0 for 6 from 3. The Kings, they shot 22% from 3 as a team. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies shot 34% from 3 as a team. So, like, really pitiful performance coming in from the Kings in this one. The Bulls, they shocked me. I thought the Spurs were going to continue winning and beat the Bulls, but that did not happen. The Bulls ended up winning 139 to 124. Nikola Vucevic ended up dropping 39 points. Ayo Dosunmu ended with a 27-point triple-double out of nowhere. 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists. And on the Spurs side, there was no Victor Wembanyama, so I guess that makes sense why they ended up losing. And speaking of Victor Wembanyama, I wanted to bring this up in the Chris Paul segment, but I didn't really have enough time for that. My hoodie just dropped in the back. But I didn't have enough time to bring up Victor in the last segment that I talked about Chris Paul, so I'm going to do that now. I think Victor shoots way too many threes for being 7'4". And it's not like he's making these threes. He's missing a lot of them compared to what he shot last season. And 52% of his shot attempts are actually three-point shot attempts. But I don't really like that at all. Like, Kevin Durant, he's tall. He's super tall. And not as tall as Victor, obviously, but he's very tall. And he's been one of the most efficient scorers since entering the league because he's able to balance out three-point shooting, mid-range shooting, and shots in the paint because, you know, he has ridiculous height. And I think Victor has to sort of do that same thing. Giannis Antetokounmpo, a guy who's also super tall, A lot of people, they like to criticize him for being a running and dunking player, but he's averaging 30 points per game on 60% shooting, which is fantastic. It works. It's efficient. It works. Victor Wembanyama, he has got to do the same thing, in my opinion. Like, not exactly what they do, but, more or less what they do, because you have to balance out the three-point shooting and every other shot. You are 7'4". Like, you got to do that. But that's really all that I wanted to say. But Chris Paul joining him, again, one of the best things that could have happened to Victor Wembanyama. And next, we have the Pelicans. They matched up against the Suns. I thought the Suns were going to end up winning this game, but the Pelicans somehow ended up winning 126-124. CJ McCollum ended with 25 points. Brandon Ingram ended with 29, and DeJounte Murray ended with 17. And they all shot really solid from the field when you look at the box scores. And on Phoenix's side, Devin Booker had 28 points. Bradley Beal had 24 points. There was no Kevin Durant in this game, so that's why they ended up losing. Despite Devin Booker dropping 28 points, he did go 6 for 20 from the field, which is awful. And Bradley Beal, he ended up going 10 for 18 from the field, which is good. And was 2 for 7 from 3, which is not all that good, but still 24 points. And rather solid and efficient shooting from the field. But again, that 6 for 20 performance from Devin Booker, definitely the big reason why they ended up losing, as well as Kevin Durant not being on the team. So that's it for the recap. So let's go into predictions. The Lakers, they're going up against the Hawks. I am going to go ahead and pick the Lakers. I know that I picked the Lakers the last few times and they've ended up disappointing me, but I am sticking with the Lakers. Warriors, they're going up against the Timberwolves. Now, I'm going to go on a whim here, and I'm going to say that the Timberwolves are going to end up winning this game. Magic against 76ers, I'm going to pick the Magic. Bucks against the Celtics, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Celtics. It should also be noted that obviously the in-season tournament games and the group play, it's over. So the rest of the tournament games are going to be going on sometime later, but not yet, obviously. Then the Kings are going up against the Spurs. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Spurs in this one. I don't know if Victor is going to be playing in this game, but that's all dependent on if he plays with that result. So if he's playing against the Kings, I'm going to pick Victor Wembanyama. I'm going to pick the Spurs. I almost said Victor. Pacers going up against the Bulls. I'm actually going to go and pick the Pacers in this one. I don't know why. It's just a gut feeling. And then the Trailblazers against the Jazz. I'm going to pick the Blazers in this one. Tomorrow's games. Knicks against Pistons. I'm picking the Knicks. The Mavericks against the Raptors. I'm picking the Mavericks. Cavs against Hornets. I'm picking Cavs. Thunder against Pelicans. I'm picking Thunder. Nuggets against Wizards, I am picking the Nuggets. Suns against Heat, I am picking the Suns. Celtics against the Grizzlies, I am picking the Celtics. And finally, Sunday's games. The Bucks against the Nets. I am going to just go ahead and pick the Nets. I do not trust the Bucks. I picked the Bucks last time and they disappointed me. I do not trust them. No. Timberwolves against Warriors again? Really? They're going back-to-back? What is with this schedule? I am so confused. But yeah, the Timberwolves, they play the Warriors again back-to-back. I think this time the Warriors are going to end up beating them because the Warriors, they're going to figure out what they did wrong in the last game, and then they're going to capitalize on that in this one. The Trailblazers, they're going up against the Lakers. I'm picking the Lakers. The Lakers, they play at home. 76ers, they're going up against the Bulls. I am picking the Bulls. The Hornets are going up against the Pacers again? No, it's not. It's not again. Excuse me. I'm going to pick the Pacers in this one against the Hornets because it doesn't really seem like LaMelo Ball is going to be playing. Cavs going up against the Heat, I'm going to pick the Cavs. Nuggets against the Hawks, I am going to pick the Nuggets. Magic against the Sun, that is going to be a very tough one, but I'm going to stick with Phoenix in this one. Spurs against Pelicans, I'm picking the Spurs. Grizzlies against the Wizards, I'm going to pick the Grizzlies. Houston against Clippers, I'm picking Houston, and the Jazz against the Kings, I'm going to pick the Kings. So that's it for the NBA recap. And should we do NFL? Yeah, let's. We'll do NFL in the next segment. Now, the next segment is going to be talking about Joe Burrow and who I think is going to be comeback player of the year. That's what the fifth segment's going to be. So I'll skip the NFL for now. I'll be right back after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned. And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, we are going to be talking about who I think is going to be the NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Because now this segment, it was inspired. And I'm going to tell you who inspired it. It was the people in this GSMC team that we've got. They thought I was insane for saying Joe Burrow should be the comeback player of the year. They laughed. They made fun. It was ridiculous, and I am tired of people questioning my ball knowledge. Now, I accidentally pulled up the wrong slide, so that's kind of embarrassing. But again, I am sick and tired of people questioning my ball knowledge. So this segment was inspired by those people who think I was crazy and who thought that I would just be wrong and that somebody else deserved to be the comeback player of the year. And quite frankly, I think I'm right, but let's go ahead and get into the numbers. Why don't we? So, Joe Burrow in the last excuse me. So compared to last season, let me just go ahead and try and pull up Joe Burrow's stats from last season. All right. So last season, should be noted, Joe Burrow did not play as many games as he did in this season. Regardless, he went out of the season early because of a wrist ligament fracture, I believe it was. Regardless, his throwing hand was messed up. It was bamboozled. It was done, and there was nothing that the Bengals could have done with it, and the Bengals, they ended up having a losing season. Of course they did. Joe Burrow that year had 2,309 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. This season, with still several weeks left to play, Joe Burrow has thrown for 3,337 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Yes, 5 interceptions. This is so far, this is shaping up to be a much better season than when he actually did win Comeback Player of the Year. And when he did win that award, he threw for 34 touchdown passes and 14 interceptions. So already his touchdown to interception ratio is far better than what it has been in previous seasons. Far better. Without a doubt, way better than what it has been in previous seasons. And chances are, there's a very good chance that he is going to end this season with way more passing yards than what he did in the last few good years that he's played. Again, we'll have to see how this works. But he's been absolutely phenomenal this season. The Bengals, they have not been phenomenal, but he has been phenomenal. Just looking at the last few games that he's played, the last one against Pittsburgh, he threw for 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, not really all that good. Completed 73% of his passes, but again, this is literally just him playing out there most of the time. Like the defense on the Bengals is really, really bad. Then against the Chargers, a game where the Bengals, they were pretty bad in the first 2 quarters. But then in the second half, Joe Burrow woke up and made the game rather competitive. But of course, the Bengals defense let him down with the game in the balance. Regardless, he ended with 356 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. And then against the Ravens, a very close game where the final score was 35-34. He threw for 428 yards and threw for 4 touchdowns. The Raiders, were a game where he actually won. The offense put up 41 points. He ended with 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and threw for 250 yards in this game. 251, excuse me. And then in the loss against Philly, a team that's actually got competent defense, 234 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. So based on all of the games that I just mentioned, the only game where he played bad was the game against the Eagles. Aside from that, he has been phenomenal for the entirety of the season. I don't understand what the argument is for and why I was getting ridiculed for somebody who's having such a fantastic season. And he's, especially coming off of an injury, he should be the front runner for, in fact, let's look up the front runner for Comeback Player of the Year. Let's see. NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Okay. Let's see. Projections. And look at that. Joe Burrow is the favorite to win the comeback player of the year. His odds as of December 3rd, so basically as of the end of last week, are minus 160 compared to the next runner-up, Kirk Cousins, who is plus 800. Kyler Murray is also plus 800, and Damar Hamlin is plus 1,100. Like, why was I getting made fun of for picking Joe Burrow? That is very, very confusing to me. Joe Burrow is a fantastic player. He's having a great season. And I think, again, not entirely sure, I think that the player that they all thought was going to win comeback player of the year, not entirely sure, I believe they said it was George Pickens. It was either that or Russell Wilson. So, again, I don't really remember exactly which of them they said. But if I'm going to talk about both of them and explain why neither of them deserve to win comeback player of the year. So, for one, George Pickens, he has only 3 touchdowns in this season. That is tied for 60th. He has 55 receptions. That is tied for 25th, which is solid. He has 850 yards, which is 9th. Again, rather solid. And he averages 15 yards a carry, I believe. Well, not a carry, but per reception. Again, rather solid. But the overall stats in this season, so far, in the games that he's played, right? Last season he ended this season with 1,140 receiving yards on 63 receptions and 5 touchdowns. So again, solid. He also ended the season with 3 fumbles. And, not all that good, but regardless, that is just the way that it works. Now, in this season so far, again, there's still several games that need to be played before the season concludes. But he's played in 12, right? So there's 5 more games left. He has 850 receiving yards, 55 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. Now, the touchdowns, they're not where they're at, but again, it's a possibility that they could end up increasing as the season goes on and as the season ends off, because it's going to end rather quickly. But let me just go ahead and try and do some quick math right now. So that's 1140 minus 850. So that would mean he would need to get 290 receiving yards in order to be able to have more yards than his previous season. So since there's 5 games left, 290 divided by 5, 90 divided by 5, that is 58 receiving yards. So he has to get at least 58 receiving yards per game. So it seems like he's going to have a much better season than what he did last season, but he was already solid last season. We already know how good he was last season. It's not like people were doubting him or doubting his greatness or doubting how good he is as a wide receiver. It's just not a player that deserves to win comeback player of the year. And you can make the argument that, we already know who Joe Burrow is and we already know his ridiculous stats. In my opinion, I think Joe Burrow before this season was a little bit overrated. I think his defenses kept him in a lot of close games. I think he holds the ball a little bit too much. He gets sacked a lot. And in the Super Bowl, in the only Super Bowl that he's made so far, he had several opportunities to win the game, but he just didn't win the game. And I genuinely did not think that Joe Burrow was this competent of a quarterback. I just thought he was a gunslinger and things like that. Not a very competent quarterback, in my opinion. He was good, but I think a lot of people, they overrate him. That's what I should say. Not incompetent, but one of the more overrated quarterbacks in the NFL. That's what I thought. But now I can, this is 100% real. He is leading the NFL in passing yards. He's leading the NFL in passing touchdowns. And he's 3rd in quarterback rating right now. The only problem is the defense, which he does not play in the slightest. And this is coming off of an injury from last season. So, without a doubt, he should be the front runner for Comeback Player of the Year. And he is the front runner for Comeback Player of the Year award. So I don't know why people were people on the team, on the GSMC team, they were like, really? Joe Burrow? Seriously? I don't know that was weird. Why? And then now going into Russell Wilson, I don't think they mentioned Russell Wilson, but I'm just bringing him up just in case. I mean, we all know Broncos country, let's ride, a big failure. But last season, he was really solid with Broncos. He had 3,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Now, the team, they didn't really do all that well in the 2023 season. They were third in the AFC West. But like again, it's not all that it's not that grim. Actually, they're third in the AFC West now, I believe. But last season when they had Russell Wilson, they were not all that good. I mean, the Broncos, with Russell Wilson, it was seen as a failure. It was seen as a really bad decision to bring in Russell Wilson. And I mean, that team, they were just not all that good. It was really not all that good. I mean, they were able to pick it up a little bit after their bye week, but still they were losing a lot of games, and it's like not a very good thing. And I believe they finished the year 8-9. Again, they were expected to be much better. But with Russell Wilson, when we're looking at his stats, his stats in this season compared to what they were last season. Obviously, he's missed a couple of games, so that's not really a fair comparison. I totally understand that. But still, it's not like he was it's not like he was very, very bad. So he doesn't deserve to be Comeback Player of the Year award. He doesn't deserve to be Comeback Player of the Year either. So it should be Joe Burrow. He is already the front runner for winning the award. It definitely should be Joe Burrow. I don't know why I was made fun of for this, but that's my take. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and who you guys would rather see win Comeback Player of the Year. So I'll be right. Actually, no, I won't be right back after this short break, because that's the end of it. Wow, that was really quick. That's the end of the podcast. That's it for the show. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, so I recommend using Super Chat, or you can click on the you can type in the link displayed below the ticker on every show segment if you want to get your comments recognized, or if you want to just help the show and donate, gsmcpodcast.net, or again, you can use Super Chat. Either or works. That's all that I have today on this podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson. Enjoy the NFL games that are going down on Sunday, as well as the NBA games that are happening over the weekend. Stay warm, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired.